Chapter 23. A New Dawn. What happened? Philippa said, rubbing her tired eyes and looking around in confusion. She sat up in bed. Well, that's a long story, Dawn said, laughing and crying at the same time. She couldn't believe her idea had worked. They'd defeated the Dark Fairy and broken the sleeping curse. She marveled at the magic of friendship. At least our story ends happily ever after, Philippa said sleepily. Yep, you got it, Dawn said. Her thoughts turned dark again as she remembered everything that had happened, but it didn't always feel like it would. How'd you save me? Philippa said. I guess it's sort of like the heroes in your books. You think all is lost, but then something keeps you going, Dawn said. What's that? Philippa asked. Friendship, Dawn said simply. That's the most powerful magic, it turns out. Philippa reached down and picked up the book from the floor. She flipped through it to the last page where the princess awakened from her deep slumber to find her prince. Philippa's eyes widened. Wait, did you actually kiss me? Dawn laughed. She gestured to the dog curled up next to them on the bed. It was Samson who did it. He licked you awake. Puppy kisses, Philippa said. Samson barked happily. He went to lick her face again, but then whined and backed up. Something seemed to be disturbing him. What's wrong? Dawn said in confusion. I thought he'd be happy. Oh, he's probably just tired, Philippa said, letting out another yawn. And hungry, too. He gets moody sometimes, especially when I forget to feed him. It's been a whole day. Yeah, it's called being hangry. They both laughed. Are you hungry, boy? Dawn asked, patting his head. She'd grown fond of him over the course of all their wild adventures, just in the past few days. Is that it? You want your dinner? But Samson shifted and panted in distress. Suddenly, Dawn heard noises coming from downstairs. Philippa's parents were waking up, and in the distance were sounds of cars driving on the roads, and even a tractor starting up to plow the fields. The whole town was awakening. The sleeping curse had been broken, once and for all. What happened to me? Philippa asked. Well, Maleficent kidnapped you and put a sleeping curse on you, she began. Then imprisoned you here. Samson led me to you, Dawn continued. The whole town kind of went all zombified and attacked us. Oh, and I had to cut through magic vines and battle a dragon. With each word, Philippa's eyes grew wider. You're kidding. Really? A real live dragon? Like in my books? Yep, just like them, Dawn said with a nod. I had to use the sword to slay it. Ugh, I can't believe I slept through the whole dragon part, Philippa said. Trust me, in real life, Dawn went on with a knowing smile, they're way scarier and less fun. She held up her arm, showing Philippa her singed shirt. Right, good point, Philippa said. It's one thing to read about it, another to face it. Tell me about it, Dawn said with a relieved grin. She was grateful to have her friend back at long last. Thanks for saving me, Philippa said, and defeating the evil fairy dragon lady. Of course, dummy. You're my friend, Dawn said as she rolled her eyes. But then Philippa's face fell. She looked worried. What about the spinning wheel? Philippa said, gesturing to the antique. Samson had gone over to lie down next to it, like he was guarding it. As long as it's around, then the Dark Fairy can always come back. Her power must be fused into the wheel. Only we can't destroy it. We tried that already. You're right, Dawn nodded. So what are we going to do? What if we hit it? Philippa said, springing to her feet. Suddenly, she didn't seem tired anymore. That was a good sign. Locked it up somewhere safe, where it can't be found? That's brilliant, Dawn said. Do you have an idea? This house has a cellar built deep underground, just like a real castle. Like a dungeon? Dawn said. That's kind of creepy. Yeah, kind of like that, Philippa said. Remember, my house is like really old. Dawn nodded. Your ancestors built it. Exactly, Philippa said. Back in those days, before we had refrigerators, the cellar was used to keep food fresh. But now it's pretty much empty and abandoned. It would be safe down there. Think that would work? Dawn said, considering the plan. They both turned to gaze at the spinning wheel. It was turning eerily on its own. The wheel still possessed dark power. Philippa was right. It wasn't safe to keep it out in the world. Guess it's our best shot, Dawn said. Grateful her friend had thought of it. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands. Or she could come back. Philippa's words hung in the air ominously. Samson barked ferociously. Hey, boy, it's okay, Dawn said, patting his head, but he kept growling. You don't have to worry anymore. She's gone, remember? I slayed the dragon. As Dawn surveyed the room with Philippa and Samson, she started to cheer up. Finally, something good had happened. With the curse lifted and the whole town revived, she could focus on school and helping her aunts out at the shop so she could return home at the end of the semester. She still missed her parents, of course, and Ronnie and Daniela. With everything going on, she hadn't texted them for the last few days, but she planned to fix that as soon as they dealt with the spinning wheel. And she had finally learned her lesson, this time for good. She plans to change her behavior and do better. She'd already experienced enough trouble to last a lifetime. Hurry, let's lock it up, Philippa said, before my parents decide to come find me. She climbed off the bed and started riffling through the desk drawers, then produced a rusty old key. Well, what are you waiting for? Grab the spinning wheel and let's go.